Hello, Internet listeners, or should I say, what awaits us when we turn at last to death? Welcome to the Caged Men podcast. My name is Cody Bridges, and I am in a prison of my own making. I am on a quest to watch every current and future Nicolas Cage movie and to review them and then tell you what I think. But I am not doing it alone. I am joined today by a returning cellmate, Kate. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Good to be back, I think.
We think, yeah, I swear I'm going to get you in to watch a good movie one of these days. We
One
will
of these
figure
days.
something out.
I'm starting to think the odds
are-
might be against us when it comes to Nicolas
mean-
Cage's filmography.
Technically speaking, yes. I think that we're against it in terms of actual odds. And ironically, we were on the upswing. We were supposed to sit down and watch an upswing movie. I had you booked to do that. And then a little news item got slid across my desk, which was that a movie that came out this year, or should I say last year, because it's now 2026, a movie that came out in 2025 starring Nicolas Cage was now available on streaming. And I had completely missed it being in theaters. And so we are talking today about the 2025 movie, The Carpenter's Son. The Carpenter's Son stars Nicolas Cage, F.K.A. Twigs, and Noah Jupe. And it's about what it sounds like it's about, which is to say, Jesus. This is
Literally.
this is a Bible horror story.
Kind of. It's supposedly based on the infancy gospel of Thomas, which we can get into in a little bit.
Yeah. This is an attempt at, I think, sort of a Brightburn or like The Omen, but if it was like Jesus, a good guy. And it's a little clunky. It's a little flabby. It's not everything that it promises to be.
It's dark, quite literally.
Oh yeah, this has that, as we both said multiple times during the movie, that final season Game of Thrones lighting direction where sometimes it's just too dark to actually see what happens in this movie. Sometimes it's too obscured and like it's got that like cinema of the real where the camera's up where it would be and they don't move stuff so you can see the scene. It's like this has a lot of problems. This movie did not fare well critically. It did not fare well at the box office. And it is based on apocryphal texts from the Bible, like you said. It's not awesome. In fact, it's quite bad. But not to get too deep in the weeds here, before we've really, gotten a part of it. Let me ask you the all important question. You're a returning guest, so I do have a repeat survey question for you. The final question in our original survey, based on watching this movie, rating of 1 through 7, would you want to watch another Nick Cage movie?
Oh, probably not. I would probably give that a 3.
A 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, his performance aside, which is not good, and we'll definitely talk about that. It felt like a project, and I don't want to give too much away because I know what we're going to talk about, but it felt like a project he didn't take on thinking this was a movie meant for me. It felt like a project he was doing for I don't want to say a wrong reason, but a very different reason, and probably not a great reason.
Yes, it did feel like that. And you did some research and found out that it probably was that. So we open on this movie with the text on the screen saying it is based on the infancy gospel of Thomas. Now I'm not religious at all. I am in fact an atheist, and I grew up in a household that was a little religious, but wasn't. We were never like forced to go to church or anything like that. So I didn't really grow up in learning all the books of the Bible or learning all the stories back to front. So
And I went to
I
Catholic school.
right. So you had a leg up on me. There were moments in this that were like I looked over to you and there were a number of times where you were making the face I would attribute to me when there's a bad superhero adaptation and I'm like
Mhm.
this guy's never read the comics. Whoever
Yeah.
wrote this movie did not know what was going on, and that was the feeling I sort of had.
Yeah, because I mean,
More
like, I'll be real with you. In Catholic school, they absolutely do not teach us the apocryphal infancy
well,
gospel of Thomas whatsoever. In fact, I didn't know what that was until I got into my really heavy Da Vinci Code days when I was 14 and in public high school. But because of Da Vinci Code opening my eyes to the idea that Mary Magdalene might have written a gospel, I sort of went down a rabbit hole myself and looked into this, and that's how I learned about these. So the infancy gospel of Thomas, like you said, it's apocryphal, meaning that it was added. It was never added to the Bible. It was written after the fact. Some people say that Thomas is actually one of Jesus's brothers. The idea being that Joseph and Mary had children after Jesus was born. And so Thomas might have been one of his brothers. And that's why he felt like he was able to write this gospel, which really takes place between the time Jesus is, I think, 5 and 15. Maybe 12. I mean, if you think about it, the Gospels really kind of start like there's the story of Jesus in the temple when he's lost, and Mary finds him in the temple when he's 12 years old and he's schooling the rabbis. And there is an element of that in this movie. But the infancy gospels, according to Thomas, are really about his early childhood. So if you think about essentially what the Bible is saying is that Jesus has the power of God. Now imagine your snot-nosed 6-year-old having the power of God. So it gets kind of dark. It is really, really dark. Jesus curses a child and they shrivel up. When the neighbors are being mean, he makes the blind. There's one that actually crosses over, that one part of the gospel crosses over to not just Christianity in this case, but also is told in Muslim scripture as well as in Jewish scripture, which is that he creates clay birds and sets them free and they fly. And they become real birds. So I mean, it's an interesting collection. It's really kind of like Jesus Christ the early years, but it's something that the Catholic Church does not recognize as being part of the story of Jesus Christ, which is why this movie kind of made a big splash in the countries where the Catholic Church still cares about movies and the Christian Church still cares about movies.
yeah. This takes an interesting interpretation of those stories. I know from my own studies, which are much more brief. I read 3 books of the Bible for college. So I read Genesis, Exodus, and then John. So
Hmm.
I'm missing a lot, but I know sort of the structure. I know that these sort of books, and again, from Da Vinci Code, from things like Dogma, that also talks about apocryphal texts, in the Council of Nicaea, and like cutting books from the Bible that are, considered to be fiction as opposed to gospel, which is just in my opinion a silly distinction, but I won't get into that. But like, but I know from like sort of those stories that it's like a lot of what's missing is sort of those specific years. We get sort of the birth of Jesus and then running away from Herod, and then we kind of get some stories about like teen Jesus learning that he needs to go study to become the Messiah, and then he's
You
30.
mean Genius?
Teen
Sorry. If
Jesus.
anyone listening watches Righteous Gemstones, that one was for you.
Right. So I sort of know that sort of arc, and so this is supposed to be filling in those stories. Um, I do find it interesting that the actual infancy gospel features those specific curses you mentioned, as well at, or like, like him doing like terrible or bad things to people in
Mhm.
addition, because that's honestly what I was expecting. I was expecting this to be like,
Same.
yeah, it's like the stumbling years where it's like, or it's even like not truly based on the gospels. It's like a horror story version where he's not that good of a guy and like
Yeah,
bad
kind of
stuff
like the
happens.
Winnie the Pooh horror film. Yeah.
Yeah. Of
Yeah,
all the
I
public
agree. I
domain
mean,
characters out there, there still isn't really a Jesus horror story where he just starts killing people. So,
yeah, I mean, the thing that I kind of got frustrated with, and I'm sure maybe you saw this too when you're researching and getting ready to do this episode. I looked up some, I was like, okay, I didn't like the movie, and I know a lot of people on the internet didn't like the movie. Is the reason I didn't like this movie the same reason people on the internet didn't like this movie? And you have your good, solid 15 to 20% of reviews that are just Christian people being pissed that someone made a movie about Jesus
yeah.
that was not what they wanted. They haven't seen the movie. They just know that this is not it. Then you had the people like me who were like, the film itself, like regardless of source material, regardless of story, is just not a good movie. And I love how we're selling this so well, so you keep listening to this episode.
Yeah. there's plenty
We're
there's
going to tell you
plenty
all the
after
things wrong with this movie. And then I think that there is the other side where it's like, wait a minute, if you're actually going to say you are making a film based off of the infancy gospel, actually base it on the infancy gospel. Because I mean, this
Yeah.
whole thing really felt like, okay, sorry, I shouldn't say we all. We studied in the Bible, there are times where Jesus is tested by the devil and he's tempted by the devil. And that happens a little bit later in his timeline. So it's really interesting because they think that they wanted to apply that to this story of him being a teenager. Because the other thing is,
Yes.
Jesus is 15 or so in this. Like he is a lot
Oh
older
yeah.
than he is in the original quote unquote source material. Um, and that also
Saying
plays
this
into
is
it.
saying this is based on the infancy gospel is a funny way to open the movie, because we to begin there, we begin with that sort of text on the screen, and then it is the Christmas story. Merry Christmas to everyone. We did take some time
Mhm.
off, which is why there wasn't an episode. I do. Aside from the folks who help me record, I do all the editing and everything, and I just didn't want to. So, I hope everyone had a happy holiday. But that's where we start. Jesus born in a stable, sleeping in a manger, and Joseph is given uh, a vision. For all the sort of like visions and scenes that happen later in the movie where like Jesus has bad dreams and sleepwalks is part of the story. Every time Joseph is visited, someone just shines like a really bright studio light on his eyes. It
And his
was
veneers.
and we did notice. You leaned over to me and you said he already does not look believably like he's from the past, just because Nick Cage just has one of those faces where he just looks really like he's from the 60s, is what he looks like
Mhm.
all the time. He just does not look believably Nazarethian. He
Well, no,
looks,
I mean this is another case with the exception of FK Twigs. This is another case of a whole bunch of white people. And a whole bunch meaning
yeah,
two, because I think everyone else in the cast is also Middle Eastern and people of color. But
we do have
it's
we do have
Nicolas
one
Cage and
more
Noah Jupe.
notably, yeah, we have a notably pale character later on as well. But yeah, FKA Twigs is Mary. Um, I think she's fine in this. She's got a little Millie Bobby Brown situation where it does look like she got her jaw shaved and lip filler before she was Mary. Um, so she looks a little too modern for my tastes to be in this sort of past movie. Also, um, but they're doing the Christmas story, right? Jesus is born. We skip the wise men, but they have to immediately skip town because of the cleansing, the Herod's uh, people murdering all the firstborns because he hears that the king of the Jews has been born, and all he's worried about his reign being ended.
Mhm.
Um, so they 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 smuggle him out in a saddlebag, um, and escape. And we we do get to see this. Cracked me up, and I don't know if it did you, or if you recall that even um right when Jesus is born, the words Anno Domini appear on the screen,
Yes. Yep.
which
In
is
case you
like,
weren't sure.
right. So they had a little timer. It was BC, and they all counted to zero, and then bam, right when he's born. That means we're counting up now. We're going the proper way. Um, I was also weirded out a little bit. And again, this sets the tone for the movie being kind of different. There's a fairly violent infant killing
Yeah.
montage at the
And
very
I got
beginning.
to admit, I think that's what's going to stick with me from this movie the most. Was they did not pull punches on it. They show a baby being burned in the fire.
Yes.
And
It
it
did.
sort of threw me back because I had a children's missal that I had when I was going to church all the time. And I would flip through it during the mass when I was bored. And there was a page in it about, and it was like the story of Jesus was in there. And there was a
Yeah.
page about, how they had to flee. And in the background, there's this very tiny drawing in the background, but it's quite clear that it is a soldier holding an infant by the leg in the air over a fire.
Mhm. Scary.
So it wasn't something that I was like, oh my God, they're burning the children. It was more like, oh wow, I remember seeing, like, yeah, like kind of almost to their credit, like, yeah, cool, they got something right. And this was before we got into the rest of the movie. So part of me was like,
Right.
okay, yeah, all right, we're on track. We're on track here.
We were like 5 minutes on the timer, and so far the only things that were really, really not good so far were, we were like, Nick Cage does not look like he's ancient. He's got very white teeth in this movie. He
Yep.
looks like recent dental work white. Um and so we then cut to uh Joseph praying in just absolute agony. You had to tell me that this was like an ancient thing, like this was like an appropriate pull, like this gesture of like praying with like open palmed and like
Hmm.
gnarled curved knuckles like claws in the air instead of with clasped hands. I was like, that's a very spooky look, and maybe they adapted that, but that is actually apparently a real thing. And then he gets while he's praying, he gets accosted by a beatboxer. The weird faraway man points at him and makes some like DJ noises out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it
Accompanied by the weird ass score in this movie, too.
this score is uh, it's sort of that like tones, like very tonal, like they're going for like the like blah, and it's all like low and vibraty. If we had it on like a huge bassy system, maybe it would have sounded like more scary, like it would have been purposeful, but it just
Hmm.
was like, and it gets worse. There's a moment there's a moment where like a character's origin becomes slightly more clear, and it starts adding in a new, I hesitate to say motif, but we will talk about that because it is truly took me right the hell out of the movie when that happened. So they fast forward from there. Joseph's praying, he has this vision, they realize they have to be on the move, and we move to them um moving again. They are like going from one town to another. They clearly have to keep moving because they keep getting like discovered that their son is supernatural, that he has some kind of power. We
Which
do get
does
then
hint to
into
some of the things that the infancy gospels talked about, right? That
Mhm.
when he was
Yeah.
5 and when he was 6, he was doing this kind of stuff.
The first power that Jesus appears to have is Curl Smith hair care products, because they put Noah Jupe in this movie with TikTok boy hair, like so, and like so perfectly like coiffed, like those like very front heavy curls that like hang but don't fall in his face like bangs, and like shorn sides, literally a this year's haircut kind of haircut. And I
Mhm.
was like, all right, well, he's gonna try and make some moves and influencer Instagram, I guess. So
He kind of looked like the face maxers that I've been seeing
he
against
did.
Manuel. Because
He-
it's no joke. I mean, like he has a star, a Hollywood star face, and it's been
yeah.
interesting. And we'll probably talk about this a little bit because it's part of the reason he was in this movie to begin with. He made his first big role was being in Honey Boy, um,
Hmm.
which was
The
the
Shia
film
LaBeouf.
that Shia LaBeouf
Yeah.
made, according
Yeah.
to him, about his childhood and what he had written while he was in rehab, and then later on came and said, no, it's not actually true. But Noah Jupe, that was sort of like his first time ever being on anything. And so I had in my head that he's this little boy. Then I saw Hamnet, which just came out 2 weeks after this movie did in the movie theaters this year. And Hamnet, he is in the final scene as the actor playing Hamlet on stage.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's that kid. Cool. His little brother's in that movie too. But they had bleached his hair. So he still had bleached curly hair. But I was kind of like, okay, that kind of took me out of the Hamnet film a little bit too, I admit. Bleach blonde Noah Jupe. But seeing him this, I'm like, okay, now we're just being silly.
He looks like he's mewing the whole movie. You know, I can't do that thing with my face that like kids do where they like it's like you're sucking in your cheeks and sticking out your jaw so that you've got the big jaw. That's what he looks like he's doing the whole movie. He's
Mhm.
always sort of tense and like he cuts more of like a he would believably be like a Victorian like dark romance character,
Yeah.
right? He cuts like a maybe when he's a little older, like a Mr. Darcy or a what's the one from Wuthering Heights?
Oh, a Heathcliff? Well, if Heathcliff was not a
Heathcliff.
white man, sure.
Well, that too.
Or if Heathcliff, I should
Um,
say, if Heathcliff was a white man, because right now that's how everyone casts him, even though the literature is pretty clear on it. But yeah,
but that's right, like that I could believe. This
yeah,
just looks he looks pulled out of a magazine and it's so weird. Um
yeah,
and
yeah.
and so they're moving into this new house. They meet some neighbors. They the neighbors are nice to Mary and they have a young daughter, and immediately Joseph sets to once he sees them talking with anybody, he sets to nailing boards to the window so that no one can see into their house. But before he can do that with all the windows, Jesus is fucking peeping on a naked woman out
Mhm.
out the window. He's looking in the back window, and the daughter that he just met is nude, bathing, and he's watching. Uh, Weird moment, I thought, for the source material. I have a feeling that's not in the infancy gospel.
No, I don't think so, especially because at this point in the movie, Jesus is like 15. I think they said he is. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're way outside of
We're
what
way
most.
outside what the quote unquote source material would say. I mean, like it does kind of play into that idea, I think, of the fact that, it plays into the temptations, the continued temptations he's gonna see the rest of the film, and sets us
Yeah,
up for the fact that like at this point, he doesn't even know who he is. He just knows that sometimes scary things happen, which in
yeah.
itself could be
It's
definitely considered a horror film.
if executed better.
If
So
it's, yeah.
so yes, they start like settling into town. Joseph gets a job carving a craven idol for a temple, um, and which causes like some tense, looks between him and Mary and Jesus, because Jesus is at the age, I guess, where he's learning his from a rabbi and his learning his Torah. they do a lot of reading from the Torah in not Hebrew in this movie, which was like,
Yeah.
I feel like for some reason is the strangest like cognitive dissonance for me, because like I've been to two bar mitzvahs, and you see someone roll out the two, like the double scroll thing, and they've got the little marker, the like little pen marker thing to read with, and they're doing all that, and it's a rabbi, and they didn't learn any Hebrew for it. And I felt like that was very weird. The movie, in fact, the whole movie is in English among the principal cast, but everyone
Yeah.
around them is speaking um Aramaic or Hebrew or something, another language. They're not speaking English.
Right.
And
Well, and so I could say that that's possibly to like drive home the fact that this family, Joseph, Mary, and their son are outsiders. I could say
sure.
that, but then my favorite part of this was that Nicolas Cage has no accent other than Nicolas Cage ease. Like he sounds
Yep.
like Nicolas Cage sounds in every movie. And FK Twigs
Ye-
and Noah Jupe both have I would English accents, I think, pretty much, probably.
They're
They do
doing
not
that
sound
like,
American.
yeah, they're doing that like that thing. It's almost an old fashioned thing of like, I'm an American and I'm playing a character that's not from America, but I'm not gonna do as a not from that place person. I'm not gonna do the accent
Right,
that way, the offensive accent.
right.
I'm not gonna do that. So they just kind of do like vaguely English
Yeah,
and like old
very
timey
light English.
medieval. Yeah. And so yeah, but Nick Cage does nothing. Nick
He
Cage
does nothing.
walks
He
around.
he saw Denzel Washington in Gladiator 2 get an Oscar nom and said, "Well, if I don't have to do an accent, then I'm not going
I'm
to."
not. Yeah,
Because
I'm
Denzel,
gonna
as
go.
much as I love Denzel, and he was my favorite part of Gladiator 2, Joseph Quinn included, Denzel walked around sounding like Denzel that whole movie.
Yeah. The closest we get to Nick Cage doing an accent is, for some reason, he doesn't pronounce the word Satan. Like,
Ton.
he says Satan, which I was like, that's like no way that I've ever heard it said. I was like, I've heard Satan, obviously. That's very modern. That's very anglicized. I've heard Shaitan, which is how it's spelled and pronounced in like more more like Middle Eastern languages. I think Shaitan
Mhm.
is the name in the Quran. Um, but I've never heard he says it once ever, and I was like, we both were like, is that what he's gonna stick with? And it just never comes up again. So
Yeah, because isn't
um
seitan like a vegan chicken thing?
yeah, I think it's Seitan.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's
Maybe
next
he
to
was
the
putting his lunch
expensive
order in
fake
during the
cheese.
movie or something.
Yeah, he was winking at the director. Um so we sort of kick off into what I mentioned earlier, which is that um Jesus is very troubled as a teen. He's having visions and he's sleepwalking during his um during the night. This is, in my opinion, like the strongest part of the movie, and they only do it twice, which is crazy to me, because why not rule of three with filmmaking? But whatever. Where he'll go to sleep and he'll have this vision of like the future and of what his fate is, and they're all very like picturesque and moody and almost painterly, like it's a totally different cinematography team. So he has a vision here of like the cross and like the blood dripping down his feet, and of his mother in mourning clothes. And then he freaks out and wakes up. Um, and uh and it has to just be normal the next day. His dad tells him he's got to go to school. He doesn't. It's
Mhm.
no comfort from Joseph. Nick Cage talks out of the side of his mouth a little bit about how he needs to be regular, and that's all. Um, but at school, he meets the only girl in town who's as weird as he is. This is the actress. Hold on, I
Oh,
should have.
Isla Johnston. So Isla Johnston, I knew her from watching Queen's Gambit many years ago.
Yes.
Excellent miniseries. Highly recommend it if you haven't watched it. She plays the young version of the main character, which means that you get her in an orphanage learning to play chess in the basement with the janitor, and eventually she swallows a giant bottle of pills. But her talent 5 years ago when making that, 6 years maybe ago when she was making that, was stupendous. And I think she is still, I think of all the performances in this movie, I think that hers is probably one of my favorites.
I'll, I'll do you one better. She's the performance in this movie I'm willing to call a performance.
There you
She's
go.
she she spoilers. She plays the Morning Star. She is Lucifer. She is Satan. And she is all of the like versions. She makes references to being cast out. So she's sort of Paradise Lost Lucifer. She's always got snake stuff around her. So she's like, and she's got someone on the makeup team did her eyes up like there's the famous oil painting of the fallen angel, which is sort of the, if you've never seen it before, it is a um an angel sort of looking up over like a rock, and they're like they've got their arms almost all covered their face, but it has this very intense sort of heavy lidded stare and a really subtle tear. Someone did her makeup so that she always has the same like sort of redness around her eyes and the same eye color. So she is very much like styled that way. And she's covered in tiny little scars all over her body. Jesus finds her hanging from a branch
Like a
by her
snake.
arms. Yeah.
Yep. And
And
her first thing is, "Hey Jesus, do you want to see a dead body?" Quite literally goading him into poking a leper.
he gets dragged away from his lessons by her, which in a moment that was almost like almost deep, right? Where it's like Jesus's lessons aren't going well because he's like too precocious and too like, you know, he knows too much of the word more than
Oh,
the
well,
rabbis do, and they think he's
yeah.
disrespecting them.
Similar to
And
what Luke writes about when we first see Jesus. I think it's the first time we see Jesus after the birth in Luke, is when, like I said, he runs off. Mary freaks out because she can't find him, and she finds him in the temple schooling the rabbis. Yeah.
yeah, so he has sort of a tense relationship with the rabbis, and he sees someone else who looks like an outsider, and he immediately tries to reach out, and right away that person is like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of that. That's like, this is a trick. It's a trap for someone who's reaching out with generosity so they can pull them back into their schemes and manipulations. That doesn't develop
Mm-mm.
really, not particularly. But she does drag him over to see a leper and to play a game of see how close you can get to touching the leper. And then when it's Jesus's turn, pushes him in to collapse on him and touch him. Which of course they freak out. Everyone calls him unclean for touching the leper, and he has to get ritually bathed um, by his super put out dad. Nick Cage spends this whole movie. This is a performance worthy of like daddy daycare. Like that's how tired he looks. Like that's
It,
his main emotion.
At that scene, the attitude of it was like the kid fell into a mud pit and the dad is just like spraying him with the
He's
garden hose
like,
while holding a beer
Jesus,
in the backyard.
this again. Um, it's so like, and in a moment where it's like, I think a lot of the mystery of Jesus's powers, again, as a not religious person, but looking at the books of the Bible as a more of a story arc, the way they're written in the books I have read, we sort of build from like stuff that's neat to stuff that like is clearly miraculous. because the first thing he does that's miraculous in the book of John is that he multiplies food,
Hmm.
which is a cool trick, but also something you could do by like
Mm,
sneakily doing a Grubhub order.
no, no, I'm gonna say no. Is that the first
I
thing in
know.
John, or is the first thing in John the wine at the wedding in Cana?
Well, those the wine at the wedding is that not the same need? It's multiplying loaves and fishes and turning water into wine. I think the wedding at Cana is where the loaves and fishes also happens.
No, it's not.
Hmm, could be
Sorry.
wrong. I
Sorry.
mean, hey, it's been 10 years since I read it.
No, no, the fish, the point still stands. What you're saying is still
Right.
true. I just want to hold you to
He
this.
does he does party tricks first, and then he cures the sick and the lame, and then he raises the dead.
Yes.
Whereas in this, he begins right at
Walk the water.
pushes
Yeah.
into a leper,
Yeah.
and and so it was a moment here that it's like it felt very weird to sort of like he stumbles into like a superhero origin movie that he can do miracles. Felt very Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, where he just accidentally, does stuff. And I don't know, something about that is like both holds it back from it being what religious people would want it to be, which is like an uplifting movie, but also holds it back from being what it's trying to pitch itself as, which is a
Hmm.
scary movie. Um,
Hmm.
so um, they get home. There's more like tense family arguments and situations about getting into trouble, and he um, has another truly better than the whole rest of the movie dream sequence, in my opinion, where this one was very cool of like a death shroud over a body, and you can see the crown of thorns set next to it, and it's like panning, and it looks very oil paintery, like an almost like heavy shroud, like the cloth like looks like it has a lot of weight, and then all of a sudden it gasps for breath, and then he wakes up, um and he's all freaked out because of his dream, and he runs out to like their shed or barn to like sort of comfort himself. And literally at this point in the movie, I was like, all these dream sequences are the only thing so far that's scary. They're not doing any hard work to make this movie a horror movie.
No,
And
in
this
fact,
is
it's really a dysfunctional family movie. Because you're right. Like as we're going through the steps of this film, so much of this movie is just Mary and Joseph and Jesus fighting.
yeah, like and having arguments that are like, I guess for the era, they are in peril constantly because like good news or bad news, if people find out that Jesus is actually supernatural, it's going to
Hmm.
cause humongous problems, whether they're happy or upset about that.
Right.
So they don't want that to happen. But right as I wrote in my notes that there was nothing else really scary about this movie, a a dark golem hand comes out from the darkness and grabs his shoulders while he's in the barn, um, and it's the leper who the side of his face that Jesus touched is obviously healed. And the other side is he's like, you healed me. It's a miracle. You touched me again. And then from out of nowhere, all these other sick people are crowding around him, sort of begging him to touch them. And he runs away. And so this is going to be the second time I talk about this scene on the podcast. Not as scary as the leper scene in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm interested to know what other movie you referred to that scene, and
You got to listen to my Astro Boy episode. We talk about
not the
movie
movie I
Vermont.
expected you to say.
He,
Yeah, no,
it's,
that's what I was thinking of when we were watching it. I know we're both fans of Jesus Christ Superstar too. So like that's I think we both talked about when we were watching. It was like, okay, but like it was far scarier when they were shrouded and they were coming out of the hillsides and Ted Neely was hitting those
and
falsetto notes.
so many more people too. It's like three guys show up
Yeah.
at the barn, and it's like, and again, it's definitely the jump scare is creepy. Of that, there's a guy there that he wasn't expecting to be there, but the whole rest of it is just sort of flat, and like they're not like. Something about this movie has decided that its main soundscape, whether it's actual dialogue or like soundtracky stuff is whispering.
Mm-hmm.
So much like background whispering or so much like people whispering. And there's a point where whispering no longer builds tension and it's just shitty ASMR. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those where like captions necessary until you see Nicolas Cage come on your
yeah,
screen, in which case, like,
because he's
you
going to
won't
be
need them.
he's going to be speaking in round California oratory and no one's going to have any trouble with him. But like it's yeah, and so he's freaked out, but like it's a scene that sort of left me like wanting. But also it's a scene that is like, again, we're talking about a Bible story that they're taking from another part of the actual gospels rather than basing it off of the actual thing they said it's based on, because this happens in the part of Jesus Christ Superstar, which I know is mostly John.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is from the book of John where he's fully an adult.
Yeah, and even then, I'm trying to remember if it's more because that happens when he's praying at Gethsemane, and so in the musical, and so I wonder if that's more a figurative rather than an actual event that happened in the
Yeah.
gospel.
But it's like it's clearly like the idea of like him being now famous for healing and being accosted feels like it
Mhm.
should be an end of life story or an end of book
Yeah.
arc
Well,
story.
at least
And
limited to his ministry. I mean, and his ministry in the Gospels is between the time he's 30 and 33. And in fact, like it happens quite often. It happens more often in the Gospels than you might think. There is one that I remember again because I had that missal that had all the pictures in it of Jesus having praying with people inside a home, and two people climb on the roof with the body of their friend who's sick and wheel him in through the skylight in front of Jesus while they're praying to try to get him to um to heal their friend.
wild.
Yeah,
What an insane thing to do. But I guess desperation in evil
exactly.
times. That's what it was.
You'll try anything
Um
when there's no such thing as medicine, really, or medicine is as primitive as it was back then. Yeah, you try anything.
yeah. We do get we do get a little foot washing scene.
Mm-hmm. Yep. As
Um,
in any
a little,
biblical film, someone must have their feet washed.
yes, any biblical film or any Tarantino movie, we do get to see the bottoms, tops, and in betweens of somebody's feet.
Yes.
Those are where those two things overlap. Uh,
But in a
and
rare feminist win in film, this was Joseph washing Mary's feet as opposed to Mary washing anyone else's feet.
yes, feminist in the way that that doesn't often happen in biblical movies. Less
Yeah.
feminist in the way that obviously everyone would rather see FKA Twig's feet than Nicolas Cage's.
Very
So
true. Very true.
maybe broke even on that one, unfortunately. Um, so we have some more like like family drama. They're talking while feet washing, and then they during this scene is where Jesus is like sat on the ground playing with a bug. He's got like a cricket in his
Yep.
hand, a grasshopper. So they're talking, and Joseph and Mary are classic parent conversation. They're talking like he's not there, even though he's right within earshot, can hear them. Um, and he's getting frustrated by their talk, and he crushes the cricket in his hand, and then he touches it with his other hand, and it comes back to life. And two things I thought about this. One, that would have been a more powerful moment if Jesus had been truly 2-3 years younger in this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because the way it looks in this movie is it's like Noah Jupe, a person who's like old enough looking to be doing college visits, playing on the ground with a bug. He gets mad enough that he smushes it, but then feels sad and brings it back to life. Like that's I was like, that's not really that doesn't play with how old they made this character. But then the other thing is a religious book I have read that is not religious at all, and is probably considered apocryphal and blasphemous by lots of religious people. And you read it too. Lamb,
Yeah.
by Christopher Moore, features a remarkably similar scene.
Yeah.
So for people out of the loop, Lamb is a novel, subtitled "The Gospel According to
Biff.
Jesus' Best Friend Biff."
He's named Biff
That,
because that's the sound that would be made when his mother would hit him upside the head with her sandal.
so it covers truly the infancy gospel of Thomas, the same like
Mhm.
period of time. So like Jesus
And a
between
little after. And a little
and a
after.
little
Because
after.
you get his
Well,
20s in that too, because he goes off to his to find what I love about the book is that he goes off to find out what others believe and establish, what he's going to preach based off of the things he learns by visiting Buddhist monks and by visiting an ashram and by, talking to other people of other faiths, which is just one of the reasons I love that book so much.
yes, and it's the scene in Biff, if I remember, in Lamb rather, that I remember correctly, is he has a lizard by the tail and he keeps whacking it against the ground and it dies, and then he puts its head in his mouth and it comes back to life while
Mm-hmm.
it's in his mouth, and
Mm-hmm.
then he keeps doing that over and over. But he's like 6 in that scene in the book, so it's
Yeah.
sort of not just believable but also funny because it's a kid doing what kids
It's
do,
a
which is messing
6-year-old,
with animals.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Noah Jupe is 20.
Noah, Noah, Noah Jupe, Noah Jupe looks like he could be going to graduate school, and he's doing the same scene, and it's just not quite there. So, um, this is also so they go after that to the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while they're at the market shopping, the girl that Jesus is interested in the earlier scene,
The
um
neighbor he was watching, right?
the neighbor is like holding some flowers, and she falls down and uh starts spitting up blood, and uh clearly has been, oh, I totally missed, that's why I was like, did that happen next? No, we have another nighttime sequence where another big gross golem hand makes an appearance, and um it drags the girl like out of her house. I think this is the moment also where I wrote that the movie has so much whispering in it, because she doesn't like scream. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't shout in this like something bad is happening. She's like stage whisper yelling, like
Yeah.
ah, ah. And it's like very breathy, and it's like,
Like the neighbors, yeah.
I guess not, but seemed pretty bad. And then when she's in the market, she collapses, and it's like, she's spitting blood, she's having a seizure sort of, and her mom rushes up, and when her mom tries to uh like grab her and like come like calm her down, she bites her mom's face and a big chunk of her face comes off. And then Nick Cage is just standing there with this like slack jawed, like I literally wrote like that he just looks like he's thinking, well, that's a shame. Like he has he's not reacting really at all. Um, it really gives nothing through almost this whole movie. Um, we we see that happen. She gets sort of dragged away, um, and then I believe it's in this next scene where Jesus is like talking with the devil girl, talking with Satan, and she's like, if you want to see something later, you should come with me. Come meet me somewhere so I can show you something. It's a secret. And this still felt so much like a teen family movie. I was like, what is she gonna? Because I didn't think, I was like, we did already have one scene where Jesus was literally peeping on a naked girl. Is this gonna be how much of a temptation of the Christ are we talking here, and of what variety?
And why
Uh,
does it have to be this girl who, oh, and as opposed to Noah Jupe, who looks 20, because he is, Isla Johnston does not look 20.
Isla Johnson looks very young in this, and they styled her young. She has like very shorn hair,
Hmm.
like self-cut looking hair,
She looks like
and
11.
she's
She looks like 11 in the first
yeah,
season of Stranger Things. Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say like she's maybe like 14, maybe a better age for the movie. Maybe that's
Hmm.
how young they should have shot for the main actors too. But um,
Yeah, but see, the reason that they've got Noah Jupe, apart from the fact I think Noah Jupe is a pretty good actor. Hamnet, I mean, he did a fine job in that. Honey Boy, he was great in. He was also one of the kids in A Quiet Place, the first one, and the second. Come to think of it, and so like he's got acting talent. This movie was not it for it. But the reason he and FK Twigs were both in this movie and they were both in Honey Boy is because Nicolas Cage loved Honey Boy so much that he wanted them in this movie.
that makes sense. That tracks.
Hmm.
Um, I think this is also the moment to say, because we're coming up on sort of the climax moments of the movie, things are starting to get tense. I think you and I both felt like we were trying to figure out what the vibe of this movie was, and you texted me the most fascinating revelation about the movie before
Yeah,
we started today.
as opposed to the one we found out before the movie, which was that Nicolas Cage was attacked by bees during the production of this film,
So
which
the man has a bee problem. Yes, he can't. It's something. Maybe he's cursed. Maybe he made the Wicker Man, and now he's always being attacked by bees,
maybe.
and that like he
Uh-huh.
just they caught up with him finally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, really what happened was, and there are two trivia bullet points on IMDb about this, so it must be true. Um, Eggers, Robert Eggers, who did The Northman, who did Nosferatu most recently, who also did The Vitch, which is a fantastic film. He made some comment in an interview that was like, I don't think I'd ever put Nicolas Cage in one of my movies because I just don't think he'd fit. And because Nicolas Cage is just that kind of person, he took that as a challenge. And so he asked his agent to specifically look for film projects that felt like a Robert Eggers film. And so what they did was they found this guy, Lotfi Nathan, who is a Egyptian-born, London-raised director who won some accolades for 12 O'Clock Boys, which is, I think was a short that he made. No, it was a full-length film that he made, but really has never done anything apart from that. And they found him in this project, The Carpenter's Son, and Nicolas Cage signed on.
Yeah, that and like you text me that I was like, that makes this whole movie make sense
All of a
because
sudden, everything made sense about this film.
right, it is all trying to do the same like I've not seen. I think I've probably seen less Robert Eggers movies than you because I saw Nosferatu and we watched The Lighthouse together, one of our
Oh,
favorite
that was the
movies.
one I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about the lighthouse. Yeah.
So I have seen those too, and like down to like featuring unsettling dream sequences and like having
Darkness.
having yeah, the sort of themes of like darkness and like storms and like themes of like the environment changing based on characters' emotions. Like that's very Eggers. He does that. Like that's a part of his sort of motif. The sort of like grossness of like just living anywhere is sort of an Eggers thing too. And this movie has a lot of that. They live in a place where the road is dirt and the bottom of their house is dirt and everyone's dirty. There's a scene where Nick Cage accuses Jesus of being unclean and he's covered in dirt. He's
Hmm.
like, who isn't unclean? You live in a hut made of mud. we're all unclean. There's no difference here. Like, but like that moment was like you texted me that I was like, I get the movie now. It's still
Mhm.
not very good, but I do get the movie now. I get why.
Yeah.
But to wit, the list of people who have been in Robert Eggers movies.
Hmm.
Do you really think he's too good to have Nicolas Cage in a movie?
Here's the thing, though, like what we were talking about, Nicolas Cage sticks out because he's modern. And
He is.
I
He is
think
modern
that
looking.
he's modern looking and he's modern sounding. And from all of the viewing that you've done, have you ever heard him do an accent?
Well, he did do an accent for Con Air, for better or for worse.
I forgot about that one. Um, I'm just
Um,
saying, like, if I think about Robert Eggers' films, I don't think he has never made a modern day film. There's never been one that's taken place. None of the big ones, anyway, the ones that people know about. Um, The Vitch is puritanical, early settlement
White
U.S. when
House in the
the
1800s.
White House is 1800s, Nosferatu is 1800s, Northmen is the Norse armies, way,
Very
way before that. And so I think in that way, because I can't picture, and maybe you'll find it, but I can't picture Nicolas Cage doing a period film, including Carrie. Sorry.
I mean,
Um,
he has done some period movies. He has
but I
done
mean,
like
I'm thinking
uh
period films as in like centuries of like ago, as opposed to just 1950s. He's perfect for 1950s.
he really is. He looks so much even in his old age like a greaser. Like he's never really grown out of that like affectation. He's very Elvisy. He's
Hmm.
very um I
Well, he
mean,
was married to a Presley for a while there, so.
true. He was. So like I guess I haven't in my watching so far, I have not gotten to a movie where he's like anything further back than the 70s because like, National Treasure obviously was modern when it was made and uh so was City of Angels, and Dog Eat Dog was obviously set right when it was made, and Drive Angry was too, and Con Air. So like the ones that I've done for the podcast are not period pieces, but I know he's got some coming up. I think he plays like an old timey baseball player, and that might be from the 30s in a movie.
Okay.
And I
Well, we
think
know he's
maybe
playing Madden.
boy is he. That's another one that's on the horizon. I did say future Nick Cage movies, and so I'm locked in with that. Um, so that sort of explains all this, and the weird thing that the satanic girl wants to show is the sort of the prison, the or what passes for punishment in these ancient times, which is a sort of outdoor hall of cages and crucifixes, um,
Hmm.
which tested my historical knowledge. Um, you said, I think while we were watching, would there have been crucifixions if there aren't Romans? And I
Yeah,
did
but
not know the answer to that.
technically the Romans were around. I couldn't pinpoint where exactly they're supposed to be living. The Romans
Yeah,
were
this is
everywhere,
not.
quite honestly, but it just seemed to me like, something about this tells me that this might not be 100%
And also, like
historically accurate.
Cecil B. DeMille, this is not. There is
Yeah.
no way to tell any one individual in this movie where, like, you go, that person's a Roman. And even
Mhm.
if that's historically inaccurate, they have a costume that makes them Roman. Like, this is not that kind of a movie.
Right.
So there might have been Romans and Italians living in this town also. And it was just, they all dress the same. There's no way to delineate that. So but she shows off this sort of parade of horrors of people like chained to things and people being crucified. And there's a man on the ground with just, um, he's got his hands chained to the ground and a clearly destroyed crotch. Like he just has a puddle of dick blood on the ground. And that was the moment where I was like, maybe this movie's not taking itself seriously enough. Maybe that's the problem. Because I didn't feel like that really portrayed as well the scene of vile torture that everything else was.
Yeah,
That felt
not nearly the Passion of the Christ as they might have wanted it to be.
no. I mean, nor The Last Temptation, nor, you know, it's pretty uh so she shows off all the tortures, and then the this is when the soundtrack becomes um pretty rough. So it becomes more clear that like the girl that's been sort of taking Jesus around and making friends but being weird and manipulative is like a bad influence or is evil. And for some reason the motif they start adding in to make that obvious is like unmeasured off tempo trombone blasts, like quarter note trombone. So like the
Mhm.
whole movie is like, I would describe the soundtrack as like chittering. So it's like and like little strings like and then all of a sudden while it's truly doing the best acting in the whole movie, trying to talk to Jesus and being all temptation-y and weird, you start hearing wah, wah, wah. And it's like true, someone wrote that, and in a vacuum it was unsettling because it was like
Mhm.
random and weird, and just over this movie it so doesn't work. I don't think I've heard a less scary soundtrack in a long time.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Which is surprising
um
because the guy who wrote the music for this movie also did September 5, which that music was actually pretty decent.
and I mean, maybe it's all context, right?
It could
Like
be.
maybe this is a better soundtrack for a different movie, but for this it just felt very, you know, it felt off and wrong and not very like not very good.
Yeah,
So
this movie didn't need a Dune soundtrack, but it did need something more substantial.
I mean, what it needed was a script doctor
Yeah, that too.
and maybe somebody else in the leading role. But like, yes, a lot of other things would have helped too. Um, so Jesus is freaked out by all this. He sees the girl that was everyone thinks possessed now over here and goes to talk to her, and she says that she is Legion. And again, I'm going to take a guess, a educated guess, and you'll have to confirm for me. That's at the wrong time of the Bible too.
Yeah, yeah. That happens a little bit later.
And also, famously, Legion is not one guy, right?
I thought that was the whole point. I'm sorry. Most of my Legion knowledge comes from the miniseries on, or not miniseries, the 4 season series on FX with
Oh,
Dan
sure.
Stevens, based on the X-Men, X-Men character.
But like,
Um, but yeah,
the
Legion,
only
Legion is yeah. That was weird. I also kind of got real tired of this whole like, ooh, her throat's moving, her belly's moving. Something's possessing her. I'm like, dude, it's gonna be a snake. And sure enough, Jesus reaches in, grabs the snake out of her throat.
which any person with 15 minutes on a like demonology website could find a name for a snake demon or a snake devil or like a devil or famous adversary demon that's associated with snakes, because Legion just isn't. I'm pretty sure Legion was associated with like locusts or something.
I think
And
so.
that there were a bunch of people were Legion. That's like the one thing I know is that it's we are Legion, we are many. So why is it one lady? It's so weird. And it's bad. Like the idea of it being like, it's not only like they've said they based it off of a text, they used nothing from that text.
Mhm.
They then changed the age of the character, so now it's not really is set during when that text is during. And then they keep taking moments from other parts of other Bible stories because they realized that by eliminating everything from their actual source material, they now don't have anything to put in this story.
Yeah.
So they
Well,
just
and
keep
with
borrowing.
what's wild about it, is that like the movie is supposed to take place in Egypt, right? Kind of, sort
Yeah.
of. Borders really
Yeah.
were kind of odd back then. Like borders are a completely made up thing. Shocking. But it's supposed to take place in that area, and the director we know is Egyptian originally. He's also Christian, which I think is very interesting in this. But when they announced that they were going to make this movie, the Egyptian authorities said no, you can't make it here. So they ended up having to shoot it in Greece. And so I think it's interesting, like they were like, hey, we're going to make this movie. And I don't know if it worked that, it was like the Hays Code where they had to submit their script beforehand or what, but clearly the powers that be thought this would be one thing they weren't already happy about. And then it's something completely different. And I'm curious if they still hate it or if it's like, oh no, like this movie is really about Jesus being tempted as a teenager and still somehow pulling through.
Yeah. It which again sort of leans into the bad Venn diagram that this movie is, that it hits this bullseye of fails at being religiously inspiring,
Hmm.
also fails at being religiously accurate, and fails at
Hmm.
being scary, which is how it's marketed. So it's
And
kind
also
of,
feels it being blasphemous too, quite hononestly. Apart from the
yeah,
casting. I did like the fact that there's a note that the casting was controversial as well, and this so it was like, and I agree. I
I
agree.
mean,
I would be
sure.
fascinated about the casting. Had they done it differently, had they actually considered casting non-white actors, shocking, and not Nicolas Cage. But if they had done that, I don't think I would have seen this movie because we wouldn't be watching it for this podcast.
Yeah, it would have just been I mean, if it was the exact same movie, I think even with a slightly better performance out of your Joseph and your Jesus, I still don't think you're getting
Yeah.
like anything. I mean, it might be like medium, but not
Mhm.
anything worth remarking on. So it probably would have been a pass from us. So Jesus is freaked out. He leaves. He notices that there's a snake toy in his little barn that he goes to cry in. He throws it really far, which truly betrays that Noah Jupe is an American who's thrown a football before. He
Well, no, he's British
really,
actually, but yeah, maybe it was a rugby
I
ball.
mean, sure, yeah, or cricket. Maybe he's a cricket bowler. Is
Maybe.
it pretty much the same to throw a cricket ball as it is to throw a snake? Does that sound right? I don't know anything about cricket. I assume they just throw snakes in it. Um, and then he gets expelled from the town, and they're all angry because he goes to the he goes to the like prison area again, and the lady is there and she's all possessed and upset, and he sticks his fingers in her mouth and pulls the the snake out of her belly and throws it away, and then he turns to the crowd and he says, "You may not judge, I will judge," which is a misquote.
Hmm.
I do know this one. This is in because I've seen The Last Temptation of the Christ with where Willem Dafoe's Jesus.
Hmm.
And he says in one of our favorite scenes in that movie the actual line from the Bible, which is judge lest not ye be judged, and let he who is without sin cast the first stone, which is no man. And that's the line. This is more sort of dictatory Jesus, and that's a little scary. And so everybody gets extremely upset. He the Joseph and and Mary have a marriage story style argument in their little hovel, and an angry mob starts to muster. Um, I noticed because this movie just does not have that much principal cast and does not have that much side cast either. It's a pretty small movie without a lot of extras, sort of to try to make the town look, I guess, kind of empty and tiny that they're running to. They get all of like 3 torches for this angry mob. Like really enough people to just talk down in a calm voice.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a pretty anemic mob. Yeah.
it's a low stakes. It's a low stakes sort of push out of town. Like they could have just gotten the HOA to go do it. Um, so things start sort of ramping up and getting a little bit scary, like in a peril way, not in a horror way. Um, they realize they all have to move, but everyone gets separated. They're packing up their things, and Joseph and Mary are off, but they can't find Jesus. And then Jesus gets separated from Joseph. Um, Jesus is sort of running around trying to find people, and this young boy from his class uh, runs like around a corner and sees him, and like starts pointing and saying that he found him and saw him, and he he does like a hard dare like Paddington, except it stops the kid's heart. So Jesus like kills a person with a look.
That
And that
is in
felt
the intimacy gospels.
okay.
It is in the
So
intimacy gospel. Yeah.
they clearly wanted to base the whole movie around this moment, because that is the only moment where I'm like, and now his powers are scary. He did
Hmm.
something that's like that, like the list of things he does in this movie are accidentally heals someone, realizes he can do the same thing with crickets, knows more about the Bible than a teacher, and then we jump from that to pulls the possession in the form of a physical snake out of someone's body, and then murders someone with heat vision. So we
Escalates quickly.
really we really miss out on, again, like I said, like having a story arc of the powers maybe. And so they're all scrambling around. Jesus is running around trying to find people. Joseph is trying to find him, and Jesus and Joseph wind up in this clearing with the girl, with Lucifer, and she does this speech where she talks about being cast out and talks about being, the adversary. She is the form of temptation and the form of evil, and she is there to like to show show Jesus what like suffering on earth is, and to show him the other way to pick. Do another absolutely terrifying vision scene where they look like beyond the like field of a waterfall and see an entrance to the pit, which was very scary. Again, few and far between moments that actually had like some weight to them.
Hmm.
Uh, and then Joseph shows up, and he's all like he wants to separate them. And when Joseph looks at the girl, he doesn't see her. He sees the scary beatboxer that he saw on the day that they escaped from Herod. And it's all comes together that was the devil, and that was a sign from the devil. And they get into like a fist fight, and Jesus has to stop uh the devil from putting a snake into Joseph's mouth, but he winds up killing Joseph anyway, which I also think is not, that doesn't happen in this part in the Bible either, right?
Yeah, I'm unclear on that, honestly. I thought Joseph died of old age at some point, but because remember, Joseph was a lot older than Mary. That's part of it.
You did say
Um,
that while we were watching. Yeah, that like the age gap was
the age
accurate.
gap between him, FKA Twigs is 35 or 37. She does not look it, but she is 37. Nicolas Cage is in his 60s. Actually, there's a greater age gap between Nicolas Cage and his current wife than there is between him and FKA Twigs.
Hmm. Okay. Well, they get into this tumble. They will. Jesus winds up like sort of casting off the devil. During all this stuff, whatever injury Jesus is feeling, Mary is feeling while she's in prayer, which I thought was odd. That didn't remind me of any moments in the Bible at all. I don't know where they got that from. Just, I guess, to give her something to do while she's not
I
in
think
this.
so. Otherwise, she really wasn't an active player in most of this, except for giving birth in the opening scene.
Yeah, she's not, she doesn't have a big, she doesn't even really stand up to Joseph that much.
No, I mean, like they have the whole "who's the boy's father" argument, uh, which is like, oh, let's be even more inspired here.
Mhm.
But yeah, it really, she doesn't have much to do until that very final scene where it's just her being, you know, tossed and turned by this turmoil.
Yeah.
This
So,
movie
so
does
we
not
get,
pass the Bechdel test.
no. Well, she does talk to that neighbor. We can't hear any of the dialogue, but the
Well,
neighbor
and what's
gives
the
her a
neighbor's name?
shawl. Oh, that's true. We don't know the neighbor's name anyway, do we? So, um, yeah. So, in probably in a moment that's like a cherry on top of an already cringy moment, I wrote that this moment was similar to the Pa Kent death scene in Man of Steel,
Mm-hmm.
where so if you've never seen it, it's skippable. But in Man of Steel, there's a part where there's a terrible tornado, and Pa is about to get swept up in it, and uh, Clark Kent, Superman, is like, "Oh, I'm gonna go save him," and like Pa puts his hand up to like make him stop because if he reveals his powers, it'll be bad. But it's also like, no, it wouldn't have been, or like maybe no one would have seen or would have explained it away some other way. And then he like essentially walks into the tornado to die. He
Kevin
Nick
Costner's
Nick
finest performance.
oh god. Nick Cage has like a gut wound, like a stick has been jammed into his gut, and earlier in the scene, Jesus heals a snake bite on Joseph's leg, and so
Oh,
he walks up to
yeah, I forgot about
yeah,
that.
I completely forgot that moment because it's just nothing.
Yeah.
It's, but he walks up to like to heal him, and he like puts his hand up. He's like, "No, don't." And he says the quote, which he says earlier in the movie that I opened with, which is like, "What becomes of us, when we turn to death?" And Jesus says, "Dust." And he closes his eyes, and instantly, a halo appears around his head, like as his eyes are closing, and it really truly was like, ugh, God, what a
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
hacky script beat. Like, come on. Any other way to show that in a movie that's so full of like more distant metaphor or attempting at it, where everything's sort of like dirty and grungy, to just have him instantly get a real like Renaissance painting halo is so ridiculous. And yeah, Jesus walks off having been changed and finds his mom, and they wander away again. And that's it. They end
I
the movie.
I like to think that they wander off to go open a small chocolate shop in a tiny French town where the mayor is overly Catholic and doesn't forgive anyone for their sins.
That's right. This is a fake out. He's not the Messiah. He's a very, very naughty boy.
This
Um,
is the origin story of Chocolat. Uh,
yeah, this is
yeah,
I
that is how they end the. It is just a very beautiful shot of the Grecian mountains, not the Egyptian mountains. Um, as they go off to the next step, which could be No, you still got about 10 years till you get to the wedding in Cana. So, yeah, they've got another 10 to 15 years of doing this shit before Jesus starts his actual ministry.
Yeah. And like, so this movie for me tested my patience a little bit. And I think it's because the moment we pull the shawl back and you see Noah Jupe, I was like, oh, okay, they cast somebody who's too old.
Mm-hmm.
So like whether they were shooting for purposefully older than the actual infancy gospel, which is fine, whatever. No, how many people are like us who are going to see the title at the open of a movie and go, well, I'm going to Google that later and look it up because I want to learn more? No one.
No.
We're sort of alone in that thought with a small cadre of people. But like, even if they were going for that, Noah Jupe is too old. Noah Jupe is too old to play a 13-year-old. He's also too old to play a 17-year-old. He looks like a grown man. And so one of the biggest failings of this movie, I think, is like, if you want me to believe that this takes place in one of the 3 Bible stories I know, which is that I'm pretty sure at 13, Jesus was visited by Gabriel again to be told, here's the deal. Your Joseph is not your father. You're the son of God. Joseph is taking care of you. This and this and this. And like,
And
you
that
get
does not happen in this movie.
That does not happen in this movie. He's clearly older than 13. He acts older than 13. He looks older than 13. And so, but they're still like in the mystery of who's the real father. Is there, what is his destiny? No one will explain these weird dreams to him that he's having visions and stuff. And it's like, who this movie would appeal to is really stretching my creative mind here, because like we said earlier in the Venn diagram, this isn't a religious people's movie. It's not like inspiring or uplifting.
Well, I mean, maybe we're reading this too skeptically. Maybe it is, because in the end, Jesus does not succumb to the temptation, right? And so
No.
maybe there is an inspiration point there. There's also inspiration, I think, in the way that, tacky Halo moment aside, the way and this comes down to just how I grew up too, understanding Joseph's role in all of this. Joseph was, like, if you consider the story, Joseph was actually a pretty incredible figure, given the fact that he was older. He was betrothed to this young teen girl, which was not abnormal back then, not right, but not abnormal. And she comes up pregnant and says, "Oh, it's nobody's, it's God's." And he's still like, "Okay, we're going to go quietly get divorced so that there's no more shame brought upon you or about me. We're just going to go handle this." That's in fact what they're going to do. Like, he was like, "I'll go divorce you." Then Jesus, or not Jesus, then God comes to him and says, "Please don't. You're needed because this kid's going to need a dad. And I promise you, Mary's not lying." So that's when they decide to flee and have the baby in Bethlehem. So Joseph, to like, in our family, in the way that our family has always discussed the Bible, which, having a pretty Catholic mom minus the politics, we would have these conversations. And so it was kind of like built into like the way I learned this, was that Joseph was actually a really kind of inspirational figure, because he was like, "Listen, I am going against everything that society tells me I should be doing. I am going to raise a child that is not mine. And I am going to, support him and be protector of his family. And I'm going to make sure that he's raised to know the Jewish faith like he's supposed to, like I've been told he's supposed to." And so it's this man that's really has just as much faith in God as Mary does, truly. And so I think that there is an inspiration in the way that they talk about at the end of this film, that Joseph, in protecting his son, gives his life up for Jesus. So I think that there is a little bit of inspiration in that, if you look at it that way, but that's a stretch. And that's also trying to, and the point of this podcast being Nick Cage, it's also really kind of, you got to overlook the fact that this movie is so horribly miscast.
That is putting a very kind blanket over the shape of this movie. I think. I
I
I
think they
do
did a
I do.
shit job. I think they did a shit job, emphasizing the fact that Joseph is doing this, and this is a pretty cool thing that Joseph is doing. I think that the film does not take that stance. That's just something that I grew up learning. So like when I heard that this was going to be like Joseph's story, I was like, okay, maybe there's some justice. Maybe we're going to like look at like, hey, like he was actually like interestingly like a really interesting, not altruistic, but like a very faithful man. And it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. Now it's like, didn't really deliver.
It's yeah, and I guess that's more my point. I'm not opposed. I as a truly at this stage for longer than I haven't been, so I'm willing to say as a lifelong atheist, I'm not opposed to watching movies or even listening to music or seeing paintings or art that are religious depictions because I know that there's beauty in the telling of a story regardless of your level of like involvement in that story. I don't have to be Catholic to find some of the pageantry of Catholicism interesting.
Mhm.
Some of it silly, but
Oh
some
yeah,
of it
that's the
interesting.
fun of it.
Right. And so like
We all
the
get
idea
together
of
on Sundays and we do our little magic tricks.
yeah. we've all been there. You and I both, regardless of religion, have taken mass and we have appreciated it on different levels. So um so like I'm not opposed to that. And I guess the execution is really what bugs me. Because Joseph comes across
Yeah.
in this as so crotchety
Mm-hmm.
and as so like and again in a way that's like if you were telling me the reason that Nick Cage made these acting choices was like well he's like the dad of a teen and it's like imagine if he was a teen who was that society's version of a delinquent
Mm-hmm.
where he's like some people might think he's involved in like witchcraft or something is the reason he has these strange abilities which is why they have to keep moving that feels believably like the inspiration behind his acting choices. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes the movie kind of uncomfortable because we're not like, we're left out of that part of
Yeah.
the story because we know what's actually happening in the meta story. And so it just makes him seem like kind of a dick.
And
And
and maybe that's where the movie fails. Like I think maybe if it had decided to take that stance of we're going to give you like the movie is called The Carpenter's Son. We knew it was going to be focused on Jesus.
yeah, and they got a
Um
big name to play Joseph though. So that's got to be part of it.
exactly.
But
And the way that they marketed it was like, oh, this man's got to deal with a kid who can, bring crickets back to life. And maybe what they needed to do was make it a hijinksy kind of coming of age comedy. Who knows? But I feel like there was an opportunity to, I think, commit. I think where they went wrong was this idea that it was going to be a horror film in the style of Robert Eggers. I think that's where they went off the rails. I think if they had been less concerned with let's make this look like, the new up and coming cerebral horror, kind of director in his new project, I think if they had committed to the story rather than the vibe, that may
yeah,
have been a better way to go. It might have improved the way that the film was made.
I think they would in my opinion, yes. Or they should have totally swung the opposite side of the pendulum and been like, blasphemy or no, this is a horror movie. Let's
Yeah.
do some
Yeah.
scary stuff. Let's be really like, because the parts that fared the best for me, my moments where I actually felt myself enjoying the movie, were the dream sequences
Hmm.
where we got some real like visceral like set piece looking horror. Um, those were like the most appealing like visually and cinematography wise.
Hmm.
And then any part with Isla Johnston, she
Yeah.
was terrific. She did not have a lot of great dialogue to work with, but she worked with it in a way that made her like convincingly scary and
Mhm.
convincingly like cerebral and manipulative. Like she is very like she she's like appealing in
Yeah.
that dark way. Like she has like I said at the beginning, she's stood on the outside and she knows how to bring someone who wants to be generous in by showing how unusual, a human can be and
Mhm.
how odd and uneven they can be. And like if that was like more ramped up and there was more like again, and for a movie where there is some of this, and I'm sure it's not everyone's favorite thing, more body horror, like maybe show sort of the gross part of what a miracle of healing looks like, of like
Mhm.
bones rehealing and sores closing and things like that. Like he touches the leper and then he runs away, and then later the leper comes back and is just better. And it's
Yeah.
like that's not scary. The scary part would be seeing the sort of visceral nature of something healing instantaneously, of like of
Mhm.
that being truly miraculous, right? Would be watching it happen in the moment. And so I don't know. I feel like swinging the pendulum one way or the other, don't make this a horror movie. Don't be so worried about stealing Robert Eggers' thunder. Yes, to your credit, that would have worked better too. But I also think being like, why are we thinking of Robert Eggers when we could be thinking of 100 other horror icons? Let's make it a David Cronenberg Jesus movie
Mhm.
and make it, bone snapping and body horror
But see, then Nick Cage wouldn't have signed up to do it.
and you know what? I hate to say this as a man who is making a podcast about him. That might have been for the better. This might have
Yeah.
been a better movie with a this is going down into this is neither on the upswing nor the downswing because we're off schedule at the moment.
This is
To
the
put it in
between inning entertainment.
yes, this is our this is our diversion. When a new Nick Cage movie comes out, I need to try to see it in theaters, but if it winds up playing nowhere like this movie did,
This
then
movie only made $114,000 in movie theaters.
yeah, I have a feeling it didn't play anywhere near us then because
You
I didn't
you
hear anything.
you could not purchase a one-bedroom condo in the city of Chicago for what this movie made at the movie
Yeah,
theater.
that's really too bad. And like and it has that problem where it's like this movie is not going to get like picked up in the circuit of religious moviegoers the way
No,
that like
no, they all hate this.
no, because it is technically I mean by we have zero dialogue and zero scenes of people in this movie before we hit something immediately blasphemous that it's based on the infancy gospel of Thomas, which is apocryphal.
Mhm.
That's not part of the Bible. It's all made up according to whatever guy in the Council of Nicaea said needed to cut it. So I gave the movie 1.5 stars because I did like the dream sequences and I thought if it was like that through more of the movie it would have been better. But
Yeah. I think because I had just watched Female Perversions last like that was I think one of the last movies I saw apart from Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which has nothing to do with with this movie. But because I had just seen Female Perversions, which was a 1996 film by Susan Streitfeld, that film is punctuated with similar dream sequences, and I found them much more unsettling in a good way than I did this one. And I
okay.
think that might be why I was not as captured by those sequences as you were, because I had just seen it done about 30 years earlier and much better.
Well, there you go. No post credit sequence, but we do know there's more to this movie. If you want to see a sequel, there are hundreds. There's plenty of options. I think
Plenty
you
of
did turn to me as the credits were rolling, and you said, "So we don't get any Carl Douglas in Fringe at the end of this one." Um,
options.
so
Yeah, no Carl Anderson to sing Jesus Christ Superstar at the very end of this
Carl
one.
Anderson, not Carl Douglas. That was
However, I would say of the you and I have watched enough Jesus-based films. I think the one that came to mind the most while watching this one was The Last Temptation of the Christ, which, if
Yeah.
you want to see, I think, a far better film about Jesus being tempted by the devil, that film is fascinating to watch. Martin Scorsese made it. It was a hugely controversial film. My mom
Mhm.
talks about it because it came out when I believe she was in Catholic high school. So, it was kind of a buzz back then for her, for sure. My favorite part of that movie is the fact we get David Bowie playing Pontius Pilate.
Oh, it's so weird.
Why
It
not?
is truly, this is a movie, I think I said earlier, Willem Dafoe is Jesus,
Yep.
Harvey Keitel is Judas, David Bowie is Pontius Pilate. It is a very who's who of like figures, and it is a departure from, if you're thinking like, I don't really want to watch like a religious movie. This is not like The Greatest Story Ever Told. This is not a Cecil B. DeMille like towering epic. It's a nice long religious movie, but it is about more of the like sort of human nitty gritty. Jesus is sort of a pathetic figure at first because he's, been haunted by these visions of his future his whole life. It's very interesting. It's incredibly well made. This movie is not. Um, this movie really sucks, and it's just too bad because it looked fascinating when the first trailer came out, and at least good enough to get some time out on the podcast to watch it. But man, there's just not much to say when a movie sucks as bad as this does. Like,
And yet you have sat with us for over an hour talking about this movie.
yeah, that's the upside of things is we got some time out of it. Well, thank you for being with me again. I swear we can watch a better movie with Nicolas Cage in it soon. And we have watched, fortunately, you and I have plenty of movie nights that aren't focused around this podcast. So we've we've seen some good movies in between. Um, but was there a movie on your mind now that you think you would like to come back and see in the Nicolas Cage oeuvre, a Nick Cage palate cleanser maybe that's on your
I
mind?
I mean, I will say, The Wicker Man is a great movie because it is so bad, and I have very fond memories of seeing that in a movie theater. Similar to, I think, Kyle talking about Drive Angry. Like that was like one I remember seeing in a movie theater, and I'm probably like Kyle when he was talking about Drive Angry, going to rewatch it and be like, I don't remember half of this happening. So The Wicker Man is definitely in there, and I feel like it's a great through line because Nicolas Cage was attacked by bees while making The Carpenter's Son, and
Mm.
I mean, Wicker Man, the bees, the bees.
Yeah.
But
Really.
when I think about the good ones, like Nicolas Cage has been in some movies that I really enjoy. Moonstruck being, I think, probably the top of the list.
Yeah.
But I think that you're going to have kind of a battle royale over who gets to come on the pod and talk about that one.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's gonna be a long time from now, especially if Nick Cage keeps making movies. All those dates just keep getting
I'm
pushed
telling you,
further
we're
and
going to have
further
to
down
talk
the
about
pipe.
Madden. We're going to have to talk about, um, you know, so many other ones that he's got going because the man doesn't stop. I would say the other one, there's one other one. The unbearable weight of massive talent is going to be another one that I look forward to talking about.
Oh yes. That is in the list of movies where I am like truly, I think some people maybe if you do listen to this, you might not realize I'm not a big Nick Cage fan. I just thought this would be funny. I haven't seen that many Nick Cage movies before. I'm now watching them. I'm catching up. So like, but that is a movie, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, that I do actually really want to see.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we will have his upcoming movies, uh, as well as two TV series. He's been
Yeah,
tapped to be in True Detective,
rumored, only rumored, but
rumored,
yeah.
and then
But we
he
also
also
get
has his.
Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse because he does Spider Noir.
Mhm. And he is in the Spider Noir series
That's
that
right.
they are
Yeah.
making as well. So maybe I'll do like a short retrospective on the TV series that he plans to be in. But
Well,
yeah,
and
we can
even
only.
before that, or maybe after that, although, yeah, I'm looking at IMDb right now, and I really disagree with the 6.6 star rating that Longlegs received. I think it deserved more. Because if you want to talk about a
Hmm.
horror movie with Nicolas Cage in it, Longlegs would be it.
Oh yeah, I'm dreading that. I've heard that's real fear. So we'll see how I manage in that regard. But but thank you again. That it has been lovely as always. Happy to hear from you. Is there anything on your mind, personal project stuff going on that you'd like to plug as long as you have the floor?
Sure. Well, I think the last time I was on, I talked about how I'm a coach. I am still that. But I'm also officially a Substacker. I just started my Substack on Sunday. So if anyone wants to come and be part of the early finders of my work, you are welcome to come follow me. My profile is, I believe my handle is at K Eliza Everson, because that's sort of the name I chose for myself 20 years ago when I started doing the social media thing. And my Substack publication is called The Part-Time Pen.
All right. Well, I will put a link for that in the episode description if folks want to check it out. And there will also, as always, you can get to all of my social media things. I am Caged Men Pod on TikTok and on Instagram and on YouTube. And you can also send me a message by email to cagedmenpod@gmail.com if you have any questions. If you want to inquire about when a new episode is coming up or when a new movie is coming out, or if you want to tell me something about Nick Cage that I don't know, which could be anything, feel free to get in touch that way. But we will leave things at that, and I will leave you with this wonderful Nick Cage thought from this movie. You follow no man, so be it.